This is my sworn testimony of how I discovered the mind of Prickly Pete and his ugly, ugly wife, wrinkled witch Wendy. Well, it all began a couple years ago on Halloween. I had heard the story of old Prickly Pete and his lost mind. Apparently he had a cabin with a chest in the corner, full of gold, bags full of gold, nuggets as big as your thumb. Well, I couldn't resist it. I had to go look. Drove about as far as an old truck could take me. Worked my way up the canyon. Walked and walked. Must have taken several hours. There, as the sun started to go down, up came a terrible dust storm. It could only have been brought on by the devil himself. The sky became orange as the last of the sunlight tried to filter through the dust. So, I simply pulled my bandana up over my face, and I continued on a little farther. When off in the distance, I saw it. It was a cabin. Little front porch, swing on the front, blowing in the breeze. Well, I made my way to the cabin, up onto the porch and into the door. It was a little dark, so I struck a match. On the table, I noticed a lantern. This very lantern right here. I lit the lantern. I noticed on the table, next to where the lantern was an old faded letter. Looking at the letter, I couldn't exactly make out what it said, but I know it was addressed to old Prickly Pete himself. Looking around the room, I noticed on the other side of the room was the trunk. Well, I worked my way over to the trunk. When I cracked the trunk open, out came a horrible stench, the stench of death. And out came a fly, bigger than a bumblebee. Vroom. Well, I lean back, takes me a deep breath, throw the trunk open, and much to my surprise, no gold, but inside were the bones of old Prickly Pete himself. Well, imagine my surprise when suddenly Prickly Pete spins his head around, and he looks at me, and he begins to speak. He says, "Boy, I've been in this trunk for going on 150 years. Claim jumpers come in, they stole all my gold, and they stole my wife, and here I am, I've been in here so long, please, get me out. So I picks him up, and I lays him on the floor, and he says, "Boy, I'm so stiff, I've been in that trunk so long, straighten my arms. So I straightened his arms out with a big old snap, crackle, and pop. I looked down into it at him, and he said, my back, and my legs, they're all so stiff, just pull them out, straighten me up. So I go down to his feet, I give him a yank, boom, with a big old snap, crackle, and pop. I get him straightened out, and imagine my surprise when suddenly he gets up and just springs up off the floor. And begins to dance around, all around the cabin. I grabs the lantern and I follow him, and he's leaping and springing and laughing. Well, I didn't know what to do. I found it rather amusing, to tell you the truth. And, well, I let out a little chuckle. And that is when it happened. He stopped, and he looked me dead in the eye. Got real close, just like this, looked me dead in the eye. Said, "Time to eat, boy." And that's when I remembered the part of the story about him being a cannibal. Well, I wasn't sticking around. I ran out the door and ran up the trail. But I was afraid to look back because I could hear him coming right behind me. He was clicking and clacking and popping. His old bones just coming up the trail. I knew I was in trouble. And I ran, and I looked over to the side, and I noticed a hole in the side of the hill. I run into the hole, and I threw the lantern to the side, and I rolled a big old boulder in front of the entrance. I could hear old Prickly Pete out there. He was just scratching and cursing and just all kind of profanities. Well, let me tell you, after a moment, I come to realize there was no way he was going to move that boulder, so I started to feel unsafe. But that's when I heard it. It was the laugh of old wrinkly witch Wendy, and I had just stumbled into her lair. But that's a story for another day. Happy Halloween, people. Stay safe.